Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting of the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our committee meetings. Please note that quorum is present. We'll now go through our roll call. If I can ask everyone to just acknowledge their presence as I go through the list. Councillor Kretsch. Janice Brown.
Present.
Karen Burke.
Present.
Graham Carroll.
Present.
Charles Dimitri is absent today. Lynn Lundstedt.
Present.
Robin McKee.
Here.
Timothy Ritchie.
Present.
Will Rosart is not able to join us right now. Under our approval of the agenda, Mr. Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have two added communication items. Item 5.5, correspondence from Margaret Stowe respecting 99 Crichton Road. Item 5.6, correspondence from Dr. Sarah Sheehan, Chair, Built Environment Hamilton, respecting an update on community-led neighborhood inventory work. Board 3, 1 added delegation request. Item 6.1, Chris Uchiyama, LHC, Heritage Planning and Archaeology Incorporated, respecting the cultural heritage impact for 99 Crichton Road for today's meeting. 4 added consent items. Item 9.4, Inventory and Research Working Group Meeting Notes, February 27, 2023. Item 9.5, newly proposed provincial planning statement and its cultural heritage resource policies, PED 23113, citywide. 9.6, information update regarding heritage permit extension, HP 23023-17 for 99 James Street South, Hamilton, PED 23133, Ward 2. Item 9.7, heritage permit review subcommittee meeting minutes for March 21st, 2023. And that is all the changes to the agenda.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I see Graham and Lynn.
And is there anyone opposed to the approval of the agenda as amended? Seeing none, that item is carried. Under declarations of interest, do we have any declarations of interest today? I will note a declaration for 99 Crichton, as I work for the architect involved with that project, and 448, 460 Barton. I have a family member who works for the architect on that project. Under approval of minutes, we have our meeting minutes of March 27th, 2023. If there's no discussion, may I have a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
I see Tim and Janice.
And before we do the vote, I will also mention there was a correction for our last meeting notes. Just the declaration for that meeting was incorrectly noted. So.
Yep, so we'll do that as amended.
Okay. And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. I now turn the chair over to Graham.
We have several communications items on the agenda for today. Are there any questions from the committee? Janice?
Yes, through the chair, with regard to the new correspondence that came from Margaret Stowe regarding 99 Crichton, will that be addressed? Thank you.
Through the chair, Alyssa Golden, Cultural Heritage Program Lead. So Mrs. Stowe did reach out to Cultural Heritage Planning staff following this committee's advice and council's decision to remove 99 Crichton from the register. We had a number of in-depth conversations by email and by phone, just reviewing what the recommendations were, what the research had been done to date, and some of the additional information and research she was able to provide. As you're aware from the previous staff report, there is obviously a rich and tangible and non-extant heritage of the former industry of the site that we do believe should be interpreted and commemorated moving forward as a part of redevelopment. However, staff don't feel as though the property has any tangible physical heritage value or interest left to warrant any further evaluation or protection under the Heritage Act. So we don't recommend any further action at this time.
Any follow-up, Janice? Janice, any follow-up?
Sorry, Graham, absolutely none. Thank you, Alyssa.
Does anyone else on the committee have any questions? No. Karen?
Oh, just to be clear, does that mean that we won't have an opportunity to discuss this further information that came in from Ms. Stowe? Is that closed because the city recommends that no further change be made? Or do we get an opportunity as a committee to discuss it?
Through the chair, so staff certainly did have these conversations with Mrs. Stowe, but it's been submitted to you folks for your review and whatever action you might want to take. So it really is up to your discretion in terms of what you want to do with the correspondence in front of you.
Okay.
I think when would the appropriate time be to open up discussions on that correspondence?
On the recommendation?
Well, just on the correspondences, I think Karen wants to have a little bit of input on what was going on as a committee.
So you could have that discussion now, and then if you'd like to change the recommendation, right now it's to be received, but if you wanted to change the recommendation, we could take a motion to do so.
Okay, thank you. So Karen, if you have any comments to make or a discussion to be held?
Yeah, I do have some comments. Thank you. I read both the original CHIA that was prepared by the external consultant, and I also read this prepared by Ms. Stowe, and they definitely come to different conclusions, and I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with that. Clearly, Ms. Stowe concludes that the building that is there right now is the original building, or at least the bones of it are, and granted the building that's up for demolition has definitely looks different on the outside, and it's got some extensions through the years. But if the bones are exactly the same, if it is the original building, then doesn't that change our opinion on whether this is a heritage building and worthy of at least maybe some further research to decide whether there are aspects of it that should be retained? It's been there a long, long time. Certainly, when I was before I was 12 years old, I used to go and visit some relatives of a friend there. And by then, in the late 60s, the floors were creaky. It was a very old building then. Clearly, it had been around forever. I wouldn't surprise me the least bit that Ms. Stowe's assessment may very well be correct. So I think it is worth thinking about and discussing a little further with this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Just a question through the chair. If it's on. Thank you. Not a problem. You mean you can't hear me? Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Just a minute, I lost my. So if Karen does have these concerns, as perhaps a few of others of us, because we have read Ms. Stowe's report, what is through the chair and through the legislative assistant, Matt, if you could tell us where we move next and how we address this. Can we take a step back? What's the process to take a step back? Thank you.
Through the chair, so if you did want to have a more in-depth review or conversation around this, you potentially might want to refer it to inventory and research for further consideration to then report back to the main committee. But I will also note, as was identified in terms of the changes to the agenda, the consultant who worked on the original Heritage Impact Assessment is supposed to be delegating today as well, so you could also ask some initial questions here if that would make sense.
Turn myself to the chair. Is it possible to do both? Listen to the consultant that's coming in, and then based on maybe our questions and what we hear, either refer back to inventory and research or not? Is it possible? Is that possible? Thank you.
Through the chair, what we could do is we could receive all of the correspondence except for this item and refer it to after the delegation. And then once the delegate has delegated, we can then go back to this piece of correspondence and then decisions can be made.
Through the chair and to the legislative assistant, if that's fine with everybody else, I like that approach and I think it would work. Thank you.
So we'll pass it as amended then, would be, we approve items 1, 2, oh, I lost myself here. 1, 2, 3?
We would approve communication items 5.1 to 5.4 and then 5.6. And then item 5.5 would be deferred into after the delegation, so after 7.1.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion?
I need a mover and seconder, sorry.
Sorry.
I see Janice and Karen.
So is there anyone opposed to the motion as amended? Seeing no opposition? Delegations. Okay, so the next one is item 6.1, Chris Uchiyama, LHC Planning Heritage and Archaeology Incorporated, respecting the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment for 99 Creighton Road for today's. May I have a motion to approve the delegation request?
I see Janice and Tim.
Is there anyone opposed to the delegation request? I see none. Okay, so now for the delegation, Chris Uchiyama, LHC Planning Heritage Archaeology, respecting the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment for 99 Creighton Road. Oh. Walking around.
Wonderful. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, as members may recall, I was here, I believe, last month speaking to this property and to the CHIA that was written for it. I haven't had a chance myself yet to review all of the materials that were submitted, so I can't speak directly to those, and I haven't prepared a full presentation, but I wanted to be available to answer any specific questions that the committee may have at this time.
Through the chair.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, Chris, did you say that you hadn't reviewed Ms. Stowe's information?
No, I'm not in receipt of all of it at this time, so I haven't had a chance to fully review it.
So is it appropriate for us to ask questions, or I'm a bit...
Through the chair, I mean, it was just posted as an addendum to the agenda. So we did let the owner and the consultant know that it had been added, and that's why they had submitted a request to delegate. But obviously, it's a great deal of information that was put on the agenda, so it's reasonable that they haven't had a chance to go through it in detail yet.
I know the feeling when I was trying to make sense of it this morning. So perhaps should Chris be coming back? No, I
think the best course would be that you ask the questions that you have of the delegate, and if she's able to answer them, she can, and if she's not, she can say that she does not know the answer to that, and then you can go from there if she needs to come back.
Through the chair, I'll start with the first question, and I just happen to have her notes in front of me, and I'm not sure what the page number is because I print things and it doesn't necessarily come out as a page number, but I'm the CHIA property history, and I'm looking at her document, and it certainly speaks to the fact that something is wrong with the history table. So that would be my first question, if you could talk to that.
Madam Chairman.
So again, I haven't had a chance to do a
Ken and I were chatting, and Ken will say what we chatted about. Just make it, I understand the confusion amongst the committee members, and we may have a suggested course of action. Ken's got a speaker.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, Steve and I were quickly discussing it perhaps be best to have a motion to move this to subcommittee, have that discussion there with the applicant and with our delegate, and then report back.
So refer the report, the staff report back, and then refer the correspondence to the subcommittee with the direction that after subcommittee and the applicant's consultant has had a chance to respond, then we report back. As a course of action, you have the right today to continue to ask questions, but in my mind, if you're trying to figure out what to do with this at the end of the day, maybe refer everything back to staff and or the inventory research subcommittee, and to work with both the applicant and their consultant and come back with a comprehensive response to the issues raised by the delegation.
Through the chair and to Steve and to Ken, that definitely makes sense to me because I really felt that I was in deep water and wouldn't know how to respond back to Chris. Would that mean that we would have the inventory and research reviewed along with our staff people, and would Chris be attending our meeting as well so we could have that discussion, or is that out of how we do things? Sorry.
The committee could invite Chris through the chair.
Through the chair, Chris, would you like to attend our inventory and research meeting?
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be a really easy way just to go through all the material together to answer some of these questions.
Thank you, Chris. And I can tell you we meet the fourth Monday of the month, so that's coming up May, and I do not have a calendar in front of me, and I hope it's not the long weekend. I don't think so. I think that's the third Monday. So I will extend the invitation to you since I'm chair of that committee. Okay, thank you very much. I think that makes sense, folks.
Yeah. Yes, Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. I had a question about the application for demolition. I apologize, I don't have the notes in front of me from last month's meeting, but it was something about April 8th. There was a date that had to be met, and I just want to make sure that nothing will happen with respect to demolition before inventory and research and Chris are able to meet and city is able to meet. Can someone clarify any date constraints for me, please?
Through the chair to Karen. So the report that was in front of this group previously was in regards to a notice of intention to demolish under the Ontario Heritage Act, and the recommendation was to remove the property from the register. So the advice was to approve that recommendation, and council approved that. So the property has been removed from the Municipal Heritage Register, so it doesn't have any interim protection currently. In terms of an actual building permit to demolish, I believe they are working towards that. I don't know if that is currently in place in terms of a complete application. I don't know if Chris is able to answer that. So I'm not able to speak to the potential timeline of when an actual building permit to demolish could be forthcoming.
Chris?
Have you guys applied for and got a demolition permit yet?
So I would have to speak with the project team related to that because I'm primarily focusing on the heritage aspects of that project, but I will be in contact. They're aware of this item coming to this meeting, so I'll be in contact following this meeting about the process.
Okay, thank you.
And through the chair, staff can certainly reach out to the agent for the owner just to advise of this conversation and to let them know that we're going to be having additional follow-up in terms of the correspondence received, and hopefully work towards a solution in terms of holding off on demolition until a resolution has been received. But there's no current applicable law in terms of the Heritage Act that would prevent that from happening.
Okay. Is there any way we can be notified if the demolition permit is issued?
Through the chair, yes, staff can certainly monitor the situation. We do receive notices of all demolition permits that have been received, so we can follow up with our colleagues in building to confirm the status of things and let this committee know if that is forthcoming.
Okay, thank you.
You should be sitting up there. Through the chair, and I'm going to direct this back to Alyssa, if that's okay. And it has to do now with, we're now working under Bill 23. So now that this is the situation, is this what we call a prescribed event or an alteration or a demolition? And then if that's the case, how do we move forward? Or do we move forward then to do the next thing? Which I think I know what it is, but I'm afraid to say.
Through the chair, so a building permit application is not a prescribed event in terms of the limitations on being able to pursue designation of a property. That's only related to Plan Act applications, including subdivisions, official plan amendments, and zoning bylaw amendments. I will note, though, in terms of staff's previous report, and even after reviewing this correspondence, that staff do not believe that this is a candidate for Part 4 designation. So we would not be recommending pursuing that approach. We do feel as though interpretation and commemoration is the appropriate measure in terms of conservation of the historical associative value of the site. So I'll just note that in terms of expectations moving forward.
Through the chair, thank you, Alyssa, and I certainly appreciate staff's professional knowledge and an opinion on this. Thank you.
I do have one kind of comment. Is it worthwhile getting a salvage report on this property? Is there anything worth salvaging that's there?
Through the chair, I'm not sure in terms of the CHIA whether we had identified anything. I don't know if Chris on the call could speak to the specifics of the report, whether there were any recommendations in terms of salvaging.
So based on the extent of alterations, particularly on the interior, we didn't make any recommendations related to salvage. However, we could, pending further review of these comments that have been received, look into that as well.
Thank you.
And perhaps one last question. So if this is the case, Chris, are you still planning on coming to our inventory and research, coming back with that information on whether or not there's anything salvageable and a discussion perhaps still where we are? Is that still a worthwhile scenario moving forward? Thank you.
So if I may, from my perspective, yes, absolutely. There's enough time in between now and the planned meeting to review that as well.
And finally, through the chair, I would also ask that, is it possible to ask a member to come to inventory and research? Member, or one of us. Karen, would you be able to come to that meeting on the 4th Monday as well, since you've been involved in this? Thank you.
Karen, you're muted.
Still muted.
Unmute. Okay. Is it May 22nd? Is that the 4th Monday?
Yes, that's the 4th Monday.
Yes.
So that's
Okay.
the long weekend, I think.
It is the holiday Monday, so typically the working group does shift the meeting date when it falls on the holiday. So I don't believe a date has been set yet for that meeting.
Okay. I am doing a significant amount of travel, but I'll do my best to attend. Thank you very much, Janice.
Well, listen.
Through the chair, just received notice from one of our colleagues in building that there is not currently a building permit application for the demolition.
Thank you. Yeah, I also recommend we go to the inventory and research group because I want to find out if maybe we made a mistake, even though we can't correct the mistake. I would like to kind of go into it and find out exactly if we made a good decision or not, based upon the information that we had available.
Yeah, it's very important to have the correct information, regardless whether the mistake was made or not. You want to be correct in the end. Thank you.
So what is our motion going to look like now?
So what we'll do is we'll receive the delegation, then we'll go back to item 5.5, and then there we can make a motion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to receive this delegation?
I see Janice and Tim.
And is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. So now we're back to 5.5. So it's the recommendation to refer the item back to staff and the inventory research subcommittee.
Back to staff? Just to the, okay. That the item be referred to the Research and Inventory Working Group for report back to Heritage Committee.
And you have a mover and a seconder?
I see Tim and Lynn were the first two.
And is there
So-
anyone opposed?
So that was a motion, and that's amending the original recommendation, so we'll need to do as amended.
Oh, sorry. So
So the amendment carried, so now we need a motion to approve as amended, so.
okay. So can we have a
I see
mover and
Tim
seconder?
and Lynn.
And anyone opposed? Motion carries. Can I hand this pile of crap back to you?
Good job, Graham. I appreciate it. Thank you. Now moving on to the easier items. We have our consent items. Item 9.1 is our delegated approvals and heritage permit applications. Are there any questions in regards to 9.1? If not, may I have a mover and a second? Oh, go ahead, Alyssa.
Through the chair, I just was going to note with regard to 9.1D, there is also the information report later on the agenda under 9.6, where there's an opportunity to discuss further.
Thank you for that. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive these items?
I see Janice and Tim.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Item 9.2 is our update on the Melville Street Heritage Conservation District Study, PED 23083, Ward 13. Are there any questions in regards to item 9.2? Janice, did you need a second? Or? Janice, did you have any questions? Or? Okay. Oh, okay. I just wanted to check if that's what you were looking for.
If I don't have it on my notes,
Nothing on your notes? Perfect. Okay, sounds good. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report?
I see Graham and Karen.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Item 9.3 is our Education Working Group meeting notes of March 1st. Are there any questions of 9.3? May I have a mover and a seconder to receive?
I see Tim and Graham.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. 9.4 is our Inventory and Research Working Group meeting notes of February 27th, 2023. Are there any questions of item 9.4? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive?
I see Janice and Graham.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, item is carried. 9.5 is our newly proposed provincial planning statement and its cultural heritage resource policies, PED 23113. Are there any questions in regards to 9.5? Go ahead, Janice.
Through the chair, I briefly went through this policy statement, and it's a lot that and all I did was pull cultural heritage and archaeology. And with regard to that, I had a piece of paper. Our strategies, is that what we're working on in order to come to some sort of conclusion with this, how we're going to address cultural heritage and archaeology? There is, I'm sorry, my notes got mixed up when I was putting them around. Am I not asking a smart question? Sorry.
No, that's okay, Janice. Through the chair, I'll maybe just...
I got it, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so it says, cultural heritage and archaeology, and it just says protected heritage property number 1, which may contain built heritage resources or cultural heritage landscapes shall be conserved. So that's a statement that's going to go in that new policy, provincial planning policy?
Through the chair, so the proposed changes, which are currently under review and open for comment, propose replacing the existing provincial provincial policy statement with a new provincial planning statement. There are similar policies in terms of the conservation of cultural heritage resources, but there are some language changes from using terms like significant heritage resources versus assuming protected heritage property. So there is some nuance that staff will need to dig into further and provide additional comment on, which will be reported up through council and then sent to this committee for your information. But we are still unpacking the full extent of the proposed changes. But as the Environmental Registry Board posting indicates, the intent of these changes are to implement the broader policy changes that have already been introduced through Bill 108, Bill 109, and Bill 23 to be consistent with the language and approach taken with those policies as well.
So moving forward, you're going to come back. I know you've got comments, correct, that you'll be making that have to be submitted by June the 5th. Is that correct? So you will be coming back to us with what your comments are regarding what we're suggesting should take the place of what is in the current policy and what is going to be in, or we'd like to see in the new policy.
Through the chair, so in terms of the tight timelines, we won't be bringing the draft comments back to this committee. They will be going up through Planning Committee and Council to be submitted for comment to the province. But we wanted to ensure that this committee was aware that the commenting period was open in case individual members of the general public wanted to provide comment on it. But it is a pretty tight timeline in terms of providing those comments and getting council approval in time.
Through the chair, are those comments private, or would we still get a chance to see them once they were sent off to our people in the government?
Through the chair, so the staff report in front of you does indicate that once it goes up through Planning Committee and Council, that they will be circulated to you folks for information as well.
Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, Janice. Is there any other questions in regards to this item? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive?
I see Tim and Lynn.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. We now move on to item 9.6, which is our information update regarding Heritage Permit Extension HP 23023-17 for 98 James Street South in Hamilton, PED 23133 in Ward 2. Do we have any questions in regards to this item? I have Councillor Kretsch first and then Janice.
Thanks. Thanks for the report. Very helpful to know that we're going to be getting those kinds of reports and that you've had a chance to check in about that. My question remains the backyard. And so just trying to find a way through to the end of this problem and wondering if you can give me some advice here. How do we, possibly clean the backyard up of the church and make it a green space? And who do we negotiate this with? I just feel like it should be happening through heritage staff, but also this feels like a green space issue. I'm I don't know what to do with that. And I know we brought it up here before, but I want to kind of push this forward because I think it's a potential opportunity to have some temporary green space until and whenever, if ever, this development gets built.
Through the chair, Ken Coit, Director, Heritage and Urban Design. It is typically not a heritage kind of tool to do that. That being said, this is in for site plan as well. We've had some preliminary discussions with the applicant. We're happy to have those again and reinforce what the councillor is interested in and see where their approach is. My understanding is they are looking to construct rather quickly, but within a year, so to move forward with proposals. So, but again, we can have that conversation and perhaps get you in direct contact with the applicant.
Thank you. I'd really appreciate being in direct contact with them because I know that, how these things go. There's always a hopeful feeling about the outcome, but things take time. And so they could put the application in tomorrow and still there's a lot of, stuffs they must do conditionally to be approved and so on. So in that interim year, right, if this is not an extraordinary situation, as I learned at the last meeting, thanks to Alyssa, it's not an archaeological excavation anymore. It's just a pick up the crap job. So it seems like they could do that more quickly. Thanks. So yeah, please put me in touch with them and I'll try and work something out.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kretsch. I really appreciate that. Actually was going to be one of my concerns, and I knew you had already been addressing it. So I'm really glad you're on that. And I guess it is property standards, and property standards are maintained or monitored through or dealt with through bylaws. So if we're looking at something like that, and we've been looking at that since 2017, maybe there are other ways to look at our bylaws, or maybe there should be some changes there, because that truly is, that backyard is a disaster. So thank you for that, and those are my comments. I couldn't help it because it's been a long time. And secondly, my comments, thank you for the crack monitoring review, and I'm not sure what determines when restoration would be required, but right now they are saying that there's no significant signs of structural distress. However, we do know that that could change, and they do require stabilization, but it's not in imminent danger of falling down. So we've still got 1/5 of 98 James Street South. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to touch based on what Janice had said, just so people are aware. I'm 100% on the property standards thing, meaning that I've already been talking to bylaw, and we're just trying to figure out when exactly and how exactly to change, hopefully augment or increase the support for property standards, because it's not just issues like this, but primarily I would say in Ward 2, the major issues are those affecting folks who rent, and there not being enough support to actually deal with building-wide issues, proactive blitzes, that kind of thing. So I've already been talking to bylaw, but like, what can we do with the property standards division to increase their capacity to deal with things? Because right now I just don't think there's enough folks, my understanding is, enough support. And some of the bylaws are a little bit unclear about exactly what they can and can't do. So there's going to be a review at some point. I think it's going to be in anticipation of the 2024 budget process, because they require money to do some of these things. I can't do them in the meantime. Just want to let you know that that's on the radar. It's a progressive thing that's happening. It's going to take some time.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other questions in regards to item 9.6? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report?
I see Tim and Graham.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And we move on to 9.7, which is our Heritage Permit Reviews Subcommittee Minutes of March 21st, 2023. Are there any questions in regards to 9.7? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the minutes?
I see Tim and Graham.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. I will now turn the chair back over to Graham for item 10.1.
Item 10.1 is the monthly report on proactive listings for the Municipal Heritage Register, the PED 23101s for wards 3 and 11. The recommendations before us today is that staff be directed to list the following properties on the Municipal Heritage Register as non-designated properties that council believes to be of cultural heritage value or interest, as outlined in the report PED 23101 in accordance with the section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone have anything?
Through the chair, I'll just to give you some context. So this is the first of this kind of report that you'll see a lot of moving forward. As you may recall from the Bill 23 conversations and staff report that you saw, there's a need for us to be strategic about ensuring that we're getting properties listed on the register when we anticipate there might be prescribed events or potential change moving forward. And so this is the first type of this report where we have flagged properties of potential cultural heritage value or interest as a part of the formal consultation process through the Planning Act. And these properties, we anticipate there be some sort of prescribed event coming forward or potential change. We want to ensure that they're listed proactively. So included in the staff report, and you'll see these moving forward again, is a preliminary evaluation under Ontario Regulation 906. Each of these properties meet at least one of the criteria to warrant listing on the register. The summary of those are included in the appendix, and or so the full outline of that is included in the appendices, and the summary of each of them are included within the body of the report. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about any of the particular properties.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder to put
Not
the
yet.
recommendations on the floor? We got to get them on the floor before we can discuss them.
I have a question.
We got to get them on the floor before we discuss them.
Okay.
I see Tim and Lynn.
I forget my question.
Now, is there anyone have any questions?
Could I have a list of how we do things so I could learn?
Janice, you have a question?
I think Tim, Lynn, and then I'm lost.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I definitely have a question, and it is nothing about this particular one, but moving forward, because of the new way we're doing business, will we be getting, you know how we used to get the updated list of all those properties that were on our list to be designated? Will we be getting updated lists to show us those properties that we are moving forward with and considering? Because this looks like it's very fluent, and it's a changing thing. Thank you.
Through the chair, so a little bit outside of this report, but yes, as a part of the now approved changes to staff's designation process that were just approved at council at the end of March, we've been going through the process of preparing notices to all of the owners that were on the former work plan to advise them of those changes. As you may recall, as a part of the Bill 23 report, we did propose that we now have a new candidates list that's publicly accessible. So that information has been updated on our website already, but we're currently going through the process of doing all the notifications. We do anticipate that we would be reporting back, I believe we said this in the staff report, quarterly. So we are sort of at the early stages of this transition to the new process, and we do anticipate that in addition to all that information being available on the website at any time, that we would also provide a quarterly update to you folks at this committee as well.
Thank you, Alyssa. Now that you've said it, I remember you saying it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Oh, Karen?
Karen, you're
You're
muted.
muted.
You're still muted.
Okay, I got it. Sorry, apologize. It's not a question so much as a comment. I want to say it's a very positive step. Thank you so much, city staff, for doing this this proactive listing and bringing things forward. It's excellent to see, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, can we have a, will we vote on the recommendation before us? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we've carried.
Nope, you're not off the hook yet. One more coming. Thank you, Graham. We now move on to our general information items. 13.1 is our buildings and landscapes. Before we move through our list, first of all, are there any potential additions to the list that committee members would like to recommend? We'll get those on the table first. I see Janice. Go ahead, Janice.
Through the chair, and Alyssa is aware of this because I did send her a Facebook post. There has been a change in 4 Turner Avenue. This property was a single-family home on a large lot on Turner Avenue. It was sold, and when it was sold, the new owners, Crystal Homes, were apparently, I know they must have had some sort of a building permit because there were changes. The garage came off at the back. There was a new, looks like a garage at the side of the house, and I understand that there were attempts to, or it has been severed. I have no idea. I don't know where that is. But it appears now, that the two properties are up for sale separately, and this is, I can't confirm any of this, it's just what's been going on in the neighborhood, so I'm a little concerned about that. It's listed, it's in the it's on the Durand-built heritage inventory. It is not designated, and it's probably character supporting. I would imagine that's where it is on the inventory. So I'm not sure what the situation and what we should do about that property.
Janice, are you hoping to add it to the list?
No, I'm not sure what we do. That's why I'm bringing it up. I don't know if it should be added. I don't know if that fits the bill. I just do know that there were over 46 comments in the neighborhood about what was going on. So it's obviously a neighborhood concern, and I'm not sure what we do. Thank you.
Through the chair to Janice, so yes, the property is listed on the register. There was a recent severance application that proposed retention of the existing historic structure and potential development on a new severed lot. So if it, obviously there's some sort of change going on in terms of sale of the property. So similar to other properties that you folks track, this could potentially be something for the yellow category in terms of it undergoing some sort of change.
If I have no problems adding this to my list of properties that I watch, and can certainly share that with the neighbors in the area because they're the best. They are the watchful eye. Thank you.
So Janice, you'd like to put that forward as a motion? Do we have a...
Yes, I would like to move that we add 4 Turner, and you're saying it should be yellow, some type of change, ownership, and who knows about use.
Do we have a seconder to support that? Graham? And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed to adding this building to the list? Seeing none, we will update that. Is there any other proposed additions to the list before we move on to reports? If not, can we start a speakers list on any members that would like to update their properties? I've got Graham, Tim. Go ahead, Graham.
Well, the standard St. Giles Church on Holton Avenue. A lot of debris, again, it has been reported and cleaned up. I confirmed again today. So the debris and stuff has been cleaned up, but something has to be done with the property to get the owner to do a proactive thing. And the east doorway has been about 3 times now. It's been crowded, they're littered with debris. And it looks like there has been a fire in there at one point where someone's tried to keep warm. So that area, if they can't keep it clean, they should get it closed off, get it secured, get some kind of steel fencing up there to stop people from going into there and sheltering, because it's causing a real problem, and that's potential to set the whole building on fire. And never remember the address, but in Sanatorium, the Long and Bisbee building was once again had a couple of doorways or windows kicked in so they could get in and probably again shelter or party inside. It has been resecured. Thank you, Chloe. So I went back and checked on it. I haven't been there in a week, but it's been cleaned up.
Thank you for that, Graham. Tim, you had updates?
Yes, through the chair, and I was really thrilled to hear Councillor Kretsch talk about the bylaw enforcement, because this relates to the knitting mill and the fun and games that we've had there. They just recently did filming there, and it was excessive compared to the normal standard. It took over parts into the park. They removed all of the hoarding off it for the film, and it gave the neighborhood a real view into the state of the inner part of the mill. And it's pretty horrifying. It's a great example of demolition by neglect, but yet the owner is still pulling in big filming duties. I don't know, it seems any direct complaint to bylaw we give from the neighborhood goes nowhere, but anytime I filtered it through staff, it has been instantly responded to, painted over, dealt with. So I don't know if we have a better reporting thing from this committee direct to bylaw, like the ability for pictures and stuff, because it has been really graffitied again. There's a lot of drug paraphernalia, needles, this sort of thing around it, with very slow to clean up. So I don't know if this is a constant repetitive thing, or if this is part of the new blitz that may be coming to Ward 2 that Councillor Kretsch was talking about with the bylaw. I don't know if blitz is the right word, but blitz.
Yeah, I wasn't saying there was going to be a Ward 2 blitz. What I was saying was that there currently already are blitzes that go on. In case folks don't know, you can request one, and someone will be assigned to your blitz. But the idea is to be able to do that in a wider scope. And yeah, I've very publicly commented on this building. I encourage you to go to the internet and see so. But yeah, it's a huge issue for the neighborhood, and I've received tons of complaints about the situation. Here's the challenge, and I'll just say this out loud. I don't mind. Expropriation. I'm going to say it. That's the challenge, though, but it's a challenge, right? So expropriating buildings is not an easy process. It's often extremely expensive, but in situations where we don't have a lot of other controls, right? It's something certainly to think about and think through. But like, how do we deal with these kinds of issues? Because as far as I know right now, there's no active site application for that building. We do have a vacant unit tax. There are all kinds of other measures, but we don't have aggressive enough policies to deal with these kinds of problems. Because you're right, the promise is always, hey, I'm so excited to buy this property. It'll be developed in 18 months. And then it's like 18 years and we're still looking at it. So this is a kind of feature, unfortunately, of Ward 2 and various places like where the Tivoli is, James Street Baptist Church. There are many other projects that continue to be a heart sore for people who are forced to endure them. So it's certainly on my mind. What I've been told is, good luck with that, but I'm not giving up. So I'm going to continue to push until we can find some type of solution that allows us to say to folks, even on a voluntary basis going forward, right? Can you set yourself a ticking time clock on this development? How eager are you to do this? Would you be willing to put that in writing with a series of self-penalties if you don't reach your own timeline, right? Like, let's hold people to their words. No more handshakes. Like, let's put it in writing and get them to say, I'm going to do it. And then when they don't, we have some measure, if they voluntarily signed on, to say, see you later. So hopefully the legacy of this problem, which I think the Canada Mills is an excellent example of, comes to an end soon, Tim. But I have a feeling it's not going to be in the very short term. But hopefully in this term, my goal is for this term of council to try and get us somewhere with the policies and somewhere with maybe somewhere with expropriation. I'm not saying of this property, I'm saying in general. That's my goal. Is I think there are significant number of examples where we need to just get on with that tool.
Tim, did you have any further questions or comments or updates?
Oh, no questions or comments, but just enjoying that level of engagement from a councillor on our committee there. I have to sit with that for a minute and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Tim's going to come in person more often. Any other updates? All right. Seeing if there's no other updates or no other additions, may I have a motion to receive those updates?
I see Janice and Tim.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And we move on to our item 13.2, which is our Hamilton Wentworth Heritage Association Heritage Volunteer Recognition Award update. And I will now turn the chair one last time over to Graham. Any other updates?
I see Janice and Tim.
And move to vote. Is there? That's the first time that's ever happened. So the reason I moved that was just so I could speak to this. So I had the privilege of being invited to the Hamilton Wentworth Heritage Association's Heritage Recognition Awards last week. They had an event during National Volunteer Week, and 12 of their groups nominated an assortment of volunteers for their contributions, some very long-term contributions, some recent and new contributions, but it was a great gathering of people from various groups. And if you can just switch to the next page, These are the list of the awards, so very well respected volunteers, very well-deserving awards. On behalf of the Municipal Heritage Committee, I was asked to speak to the changes that Bill 23 has brought to the Ontario Heritage Act. So there was a lot of great feedback that we got in the room, most people not knowing and understanding those impacts. Again, the media very broadly talking about the impacts that it's having on affordable housing and sustainability and expansion into the Greenlands, but not necessarily focusing on the contributions that it's having to our heritage. So they were very appreciative of having us there as a group. And speaking with Lee Gowers, who represented the Hamilton Wentworth Heritage Association, they are really looking forward to doing more with us. They are, this is now the second event that we've had a chance to sort of get involved with the association and work together. And I know city staff are working on trying to have 2 heritage events every year, not just to focus on Heritage Day, but having every 6 months an opportunity for our members as well as the members of the association and any other people that are interested in municipal heritage to get together and have a talk. So I'm tentatively looking at the end of September that they're organizing something that there may be a guest speaker, a topic that everyone's interested in, and just getting everyone together for a good conversation and an opportunity to learn more. So the other thing that just something that this is something that the association's been putting together for years now is their Who's Who, and so they've just updated their Who's Who for 2023. So they gave me our official copy from Municipal Heritage Committee, but they, if they haven't already done so, fairly soon they'll be putting that online. So you'll be able to go to their website and all of that information there. It's the list of all of their previous winners that have won these awards, as well as contacts for all of the various groups under the association and those important contact people. So a worthwhile resource for us to have so we can stay in touch with all of the groups that are under the association. So just congratulations to all of those award winners, and I wanted to bring that to the Municipal Heritage Committee to let everyone know, and I'm sure they're looking at next year having an even bigger, this is their first event post-COVID, and having not had it for a couple of years. So I know next year they'll be looking at having something much bigger, something related to Heritage Week, and I know more of their groups will get behind nominating more Heritage volunteers.
Thank you, Alyssa. Does anyone have any questions for Alyssa on this? Seeing none, can we have a mover and a seconder to receive the report?
I see Janice and Lynn.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. And handing it back.
Thank you, Graham. We now move on to new business. Is there any new business today? I think, Janice, you had a couple of items you wanted to update us on. Do we have any other members that wish to be on the speakers list? If not, go ahead, Janice.
Yes, I just want to share with maybe our audience out there, and I hope there are hundreds of them, and of course the committee, the ACO and the City of Hamilton and Doors Open Ontario and the Hamilton Burlington Society of Architects are putting on Doors Open 2023. The theme this year is appetite, and it's interesting in that I know Bill King and Stan Novak in Dundas are doing walking tours based around the various buildings that have been adaptively reused as places for food. And I think those will be a lot of fun. And then, of course, there are several other buildings. I think there's a total of 38 buildings this year. So that's May the 6th and 7th, and from 10 until 4, and the weather looks promising. We've got 6 days of rain, and then I think it's going to break Thursday, Friday. So hope to see people out and about in Hamilton, and I know our own Ken Coit is going to be delivering a walkthrough and history and heritage of the Lister, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure to take that in. You'll learn a lot. And the second announcement, it's coming up, and the Durand Neighborhood Association, they're back again, the Grand Durand Garden Tour. It was was supposed to have been 2022, but because of COVID, we really needed to push it back. So the committee, there are 11 beautiful gardens throughout the Durand, and it's coming up on the 17th of June. It's always the same Saturday, and tickets you'll be able to get tickets online, as well as a few locations, for example, like the Keeping Room in Dundas, Mixed Media in Westdale, maybe a place on Lock Street, but certainly online. And if you've never been, I suggest you attend. It's a walking tour, and you'll see a lot of heritage as well as beautiful gardens, and the owners are there to talk to you. Those are my good news comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive those new business items?
I see Graham and Tim.
And is there anyone opposed to receiving? Seeing none, that item is carried. And if there's no other business, may I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn?
I see Graham and Tim.
He gets his hand up fast for that one. And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item's carried. Thank you, everyone. And our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, May 19th.